Hey there, my friend. It's Trisha Carr. Real quick before we head into this episode, I just want to make sure that you know about Modern Mystic Life, a subscription service for spiritual mentoring and education. The monthly subscription is only $11.11 per month. We have regular support and inspiration delivered with the utmost ease right into your text messenger 2 to 4 times per week. You can use your mobile device or your desktop messenger to access the lessons and meditations, a monthly MP3 download of a produced meditation, at least once per month live meditation led by me. There is no account login, and we have a monthly live class workshop. These are usually $35 for non-subscribers, so it is quite a deal. And the community is amazing. This is a way for you to support the Charmed Life podcast and also a way for us to be able to work more closely together. So do check out how you can subscribe in the show notes. I hope to see you there. Hello and welcome to the Charmed Life podcast. This podcast is all about magic, metaphysics, mysticism, and the unconditional love of the universe, and I am your host. My name is Trisha Carr. In this episode, we have a conscious conversation with Dr. Susan Corso. And before we head into that conversation, I just wanted to share a little bit with you all about how my whole life really shifted and changed as I had my spiritual awakening. And I wanted to give you a gift in case you would like some support along those lines. Now, just the concept of awakening, this is the sense I think we walk around with all the time, a sense of being separated or obscured. And the concept of awakening is that there is something that we are asleep to and are awakening from. And it feels so wonderful. And so for me, how the awakening occurred was how, I guess, incrementally my whole life started to improve. But preceding the improvement of that was my internal world, my energy, my emotions, my mind, all being healed. And that's very much in alignment with this conversation I have with Dr. Susan Corso, because she is an energy worker. And so that healing was happening even though I wasn't seeking a certain metaphysical or mystical or spiritual paradigm. I didn't realize I was, but I was, in the sense that I was reading Eckhart Tolle and I was reading Dr. Wayne Dyer and Deepak Chopra for years. And I would still pray, even though I had left the paradigm that had taught me, in air quotes, taught me to pray, meaning the church. I still prayed, even though I'd left the church 20 years prior. I continued to pray, even though I left the concept of spirituality through Christianity or a religion of any kind, because I found prayer to be beneficial to me. And I enjoyed it, and it made differences in my life, and it healed me. And I would even pray in the same language that I did before, because the language that I used was personal and it was my own. And the thing that prayer has always been it always is a meditative practice when it is healing. It is a practice happening in your energy, in a state of really altered state of hypnosis. So I guess I was a spiritual seeker even before I had this certain particular awakening at around, I think it was age 39 or 40. Upon having my life improve and having a lot of my emotions and mind and my inner bodies improve and heal. And yet there were still some things that now they were starting to be glaring in contrast, certain thoughts and feelings that didn't align with my life. And essentially, I'm going to skip forward to the part I want to share with you. After I moved past this big pop of awakening, this big water in your face of awakening, how I continued to grow was to very intentionally engage in meditation, intentionally engage with that inner healing process. And the way I was taught to, even though I didn't know I was being taught to meditate, was by doing a body scan. And I was doing the body scan every morning. There was a person that I worked with in just like an energy healing process. I think we did 4 months, one meeting per month. And she also sent some guide tracks, very simple, just recorded on her phone, guide tracks, walking you through scanning the body. I did that a few times, and then I didn't need her guide track because I got it. And so that really taught me, if you will, how to meditate and how to enjoy it and intentionally meditate. So something so simple as that. And it didn't take me, sometimes it was 5 minutes, sometimes it was 10 minutes. And then I just wanted to be in it more and more and more. So I have shared in the show notes here a download, a meditation that you can download and keep. It's a short one. It's one that can assist you in that process. Now, I have produced mine more than my teacher did because I like to do that because I'm into audio. And so it's one that you can use every day, even if you feel resonance with it. So I put that in there. Just go into the show notes. You'll be able to click through and you'll be able to download it. Now, that's what I have for you. I hope that could be helpful to you. And even if you don't download my free gift, the meditation, then, just consider the body scan, and you can find plenty on many other free resources as well. So let's talk about this conscious conversation with Dr. Susan Corso. Dr. Susan Corso is a metaphysician, an intuitive, and an author of both fiction and nonfiction. She has had a spiritual consulting practice for over 40 years. Her latest nonfiction are the 8 Energy Integrity Workbooks. They teach applied, practical knowledge of how your chakras reflect your past, how your chakras can be changed in the present, and how to use your own human energy system to create your future. Her fiction crosses genres and is about people who are conscious creators. She lives in the Hudson River Valley in Cupcake Manor with her beloved husband and her familiar Smooch. So, I'm really excited to welcome you into this episode with Dr. Susan Corso. This conversation is very uplifting and very interesting. So enjoy, and I will chat with you on the other side. Well, I am very excited to chat with you. You have a fascinating story as far as I have seen, and I'm so interested in your work. So welcome, Susan. If I may call you Susan, you're Reverend Dr. Susan Corso. So I want to know about your titles too.
Very fancy, very, very fancy. I don't use most of them.
I'm actually a reverend too, and I never use it. But one of my friends, because my given name is Patricia, but I don't use Patricia or Pat or Patty. I use Trisha. And one of my friends teases me and she calls me Reverend Pat.
There you go.
And I don't use
the
it
evangelist.
Yeah, exactly. Putting up tents, that's what I do.
Right.
But I digress on all of that. I really want to hear all about your work, your journey. How did you begin this work? And what have you been doing all this time? What are you doing now? So please, if you don't mind, I know that's
45 questions.
I know. No, I try to make it as open-ended as possible. Just really want to give you the platform so that the audience, everyone who's coming here with expectations, can bask in your light. So thank you so much.
And my sincere pleasure. I'm very glad to be here because I actually feel like I live a charmed life.
Oh, yay.
And there's a reason for that. And the reason for that is, as is so common in human beings, my journey into serious spiritual work, including the Reverend and the Doctor, came through tragedy, as is so often the case for all of us. I mean, when I was a kid, I sang in a church choir, but there was no God in that equation. It was just singing. So, but I didn't understand that. And when I was an intuitive as a kid, and I spent 25 years going, yeah, no, thanks, not, no. But at age 25, a friend of mine gave me a psychic reading for my birthday. And I walked into this woman's house, and she said, and she knew my name. That was all she knew. And she said, you should be reading for me. And the door, essentially the doors on my intuition blew wide open. One of the things she said that day was that I was a color healer in Egypt. And I rolled my eyes like, oh, right. Okay. A friend of mine came to get me at the reading. I'm telling her about it over dinner. And we're around the corner from a bookstore called East West Books in New York, which was at 5th Avenue and 13th Street, I guess. She said, let's go to East West. We'll see if there's any books on color. I said, okay. So we go. And in front of a shelf of books on color, 3 of them fell on the ground. And I turned to her. Her name was Susan also. And I said, Suze? She said, yes, they did. Never mind. Just buy the books. Okay. I get them home. I buy the books, and I'm about 50 pages into one. And I say to her, this is really weird, but I know this. Mm-hmm. I know what colors mean. I know what colors do. Mm-hmm. And I've always been a color person. I've always loved color. And, I don't think you can have green eyes and red hair and wear bright lipstick and not love color, even though I'm wearing black and white today, but, often I don't. So people started coming to me and asking me for help healing things. And I knew that I had healing ability from the time I was a child, but I had kind of, shied away from it. Eventually, a practice started to happen. I didn't seek out having a spiritual counseling practice in any way, shape, or form, but my intuition started to fire on all cylinders, and I started to be able to say to the girl whose knees were bad, for example, she was a dancer, and I said to her, I can't help you with your knees. After I put my hands on her knees, she said, why not? I said, because until you're not mad at your grandmother anymore, they're not going to fix. And she was about 18, I guess. She said to me, what? I said, you're mad at your grandmother. She essentially pushes you to your knees all the time. She humiliates you. And this was a kid I didn't know. And she just was like this at me. How do you know that? I said, I don't know how I know that, but I do know it. So the thing to do is either figure out how not to let her get to you, or forgive her, or stand up to her. I mean, you have some choices. Anyway, she stood up to her grandmother, and 2 days later, her knees were fine.
Amazing.
So people started referring people to me. So eventually, I met a man who still is a very dear friend of mine, my favorite ex-husband, and married him. And we had a son. And his name was Isaac, and he died the day he was born.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And yes, me too. As I'm so fond of saying, it was the worst thing that ever happened to me. It was many years ago. It broke my heart, but it also broke my heart open.
Yeah.
And I nailed God. I was so angry that I couldn't see straight most of the time. And said, excuse me, children don't die before their parents. What is this? And I kept, if you will, metaphorically banging on the doors of heaven, not understanding that there was any way for me to get any answers at all. Well, 9 months after the baby died, I still wasn't healing.
Yeah.
And I didn't know why, and I didn't know what to do. But I had gone back to my meditation practice. And a woman showed up in my third eye and said hi. And I said, hi. She said, I'm Mary. I said, hi, Mary. And she said, Jesus, Mom? What?
She said that. She said, you know my son.
And then she vanished. And I'm thinking, wait a minute. This is 9 months to the day that my son was born. Come to find out many years later that a human grieving pattern often goes in 9-month increments.
Wow.
Because it's a gestation period,
of
course. Mm-hmm. So every day for 9 more months, she checked in on me. She never said another word. And so exactly 18 months to the day after Isaac died, she said, Do you want to know how I did it? I knew immediately what she meant. How did I give up my son? And I said, yes. And she said, I gave him away. And that day, I gave my son away and I started to heal.
Yeah.
It took me another 18 months to get my sense of self back. And anyone who's ever been pregnant knows that, it takes a while to get that pregnant. So it takes a while to get that unpregnant as well.
Yeah.
People have this idea that you go in the hospital, wearing maternity clothes and you come out as a size 10. And that did not happen to me anyway.
Yeah.
But after all was said and done, I went back to her and I said, okay, I want to work for you.
To marry?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she said, okay. And I've been working for her ever since.
Wow.
Over time, my intuition started to get much clearer about medical things and medical intuition. When I lived in Boston, someone sent me a doctor, an MD, who was having a terrible time with some health issues that Western medicine was not solving. And he said, my friend says that you can help me out, blah, blah, this and this. And he was, skeptical from, here to Alaska. Mm-hmm. And I said, okay, tell me what's going on. And he was a native Russian. And I listened to him, and he was talking about deeply emotional things, but, like he was reading a Campbell's soup can out loud, right? Mm-hmm. Tomatoes, milk, blah. And I'm thinking, what is going on? Like, how can you talk about such intense emotional stuff? Escaping from Russia and this and this and this. And I went, oh, I know. I said to him, stop. He stopped talking. I said, now tell me that whole story over again, but tell it to me in Russian.
Oh, yeah.
He said, you speak Russian? I said, no, it doesn't matter. Tell it to me in Russian. So I knew what happened once he started to speak in Russian. I didn't need to know the words. I needed to know the feelings in order to help him heal.
Yeah.
So after that, he decided he was going to start a big medical center in Boston. And he asked me if I would come and be the head of spiritual and energy medicine in a medical center with 20 doctors. Sure, I guess. So I would go, and they sent me the patients here's the truth. They sent me the patients that Western medicine could only move just so far.
Yeah.
So people were getting well, or they were feeling better. People were feeling better, but they weren't well.
Right.
And I said to these doctors over and over, and they were all different kinds of doctors. Some of them were doctors of osteopathy. Some of them were gynecologists. Some of them, they were all different practices, right? And I said to them all, every single disease has a psycho, spiritual, or emotional component behind it.
Yeah.
It's energetic. And they all looked at me like I was crazy.
And when was this? What time period? Just curious.
In the early 2000s.
Okay. All right.
And I finally had to get articulate about energy. Mm-hmm. And I had to explain it to people who were completely linear, completely Western medicine trained. And here I'm talking to them about energy. So here's what happens. The color thing from the psychic lady a squillion years ago, I'm now in Boston talking to MDs, and they're all looking at me like I'm from Planet Q. I may very well be from Planet Q, but even so, I finally had to, this is what I figured out. When a doctor studies in medical school, they study 11 systems. The skeletal system, the circular, you know that you learn them all in the 8th grade, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, if you know anything about numerology, you know that the mystical number we're looking for here is 12, not 11.
Yeah.
Right? So
The dimensions. Yeah.
what's the 12th system?
Uh-huh.
Well, the 12th system is the human energy system.
Right.
And Western medicine can't figure out how to monetize it.
Well, I mean, I
Bless
can.
them. Right. Yes. But there's no
Yeah.
there's no DSM code. There's no insurance code for
Yeah.
somebody's chakras are screwed up. So I finally had to come up with a way to explain to these doctors what I was seeing.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So a woman came to see me at this particular medical center who was an opera singer. And she had lost the top third of her range. And she was a coloratura soprano, which is
Oh, wow.
like ping soprano, right?
That's what
And
I was, but I'm not using it at all. So yeah, I know the
well,
coloratura range. Yeah.
she had all these operas to sing over the summer in Germany. She was going from opera house to opera house to opera house. And she said to me, this is like February. She said, I'm going to have to cancel them all. I can't sing these notes anymore. And she'd been to ENT, ear, nose, and throat wizards up and down the East Coast. And they all wanted to do surgery or this or this or this. She couldn't do it. She was just like, no, this isn't right. So I looked at her and looked at her and looked at her. She's in her mid 40s at this point, maybe. And I said to her, and this is a shocking question, I forewarn listeners. How old were you when you had the abortion?
Yeah.
And she said, 14. I never told a soul. How do you know that?
Oh, gosh.
And I said, and were you raised Catholic? Not to Catholic bash. Don't misunderstand. She said, I was in Catholic school at the time. I said, So the 14-year-old person you were in Catholic school at the time had an abortion. Do you think maybe you judged yourself a little for that? Well, of course, the tears, welled up. She started to cry. I said, of course you did. Of course you did. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to give you 2 words. I want you to say them to yourself as often as you can. And within the next couple of weeks, you'll be able to sing again. She said, 2 words. What could they possibly be? And I said, te absolvo, which is what the Latin for what a priest says at the end of confession. Yeah. I absolve you. We talked a little more, and I finally said to her, how do you know that you didn't do that soul a supreme favor? That all that soul needed was to come to earth for 6 weeks and be embodied and then go back to heaven? Why? And could it be actually that the soul is grateful to you and that God is grateful to you because you provided that service? Well, of course, she never thought of it that way. And she had been torturing herself for what she had done her whole life. So I explained to her about souls and incarnation. And that's one of the things I learned from having this son who died the day he was born. Babies have souls and they have agendas. And I used to say about my Isaac, he came to have a meeting in the neonatal intensive care unit for 2 hours. He was done. Bye. I don't need to do this anymore.
Soul purpose fulfilled.
Okay, that's right. Yeah. Mission accomplished. So she did get her voice back in about 10 days. She was absolutely fine. And the doctors began to understand that the way we think about ourselves and our bodies and medicine and healing, and there's a difference between healing and curing, right? I mean, like all those things, the doctors started to think, maybe that crazy girl has something to say to us. So eventually I started to talk to them about the chakra system because that's how I do my diagnosis. And for me, the chakra system is the 12th medical system, but it's the life force, which is the 12th system, right? But viewed through a prism.
Right.
Because the life force itself is blinding light. Right. So whenever anybody says to me, I need psychic protection, I'll just wrap myself in a white light. I go, no, don't do that. White light is for 9/11, right? It's for stopping a kid from walking in front of a bus. White light is too strong most of the time. What you want is a rainbow. You want the spectrum so that people can pull energetically what they need and leave the rest. Right. So I tell people, can you picture a barber pole, an old fashioned barber pole with the red, white, and blue, right? Change it to a rainbow and get in. Right. Let people take energy from the outside of you, not from you. Right. Yes. So many of us are exhausted all the time, most particularly women, and often, women who are working and parents are cross-eyed tired. They don't have a minute to read a book. Read a book. What? Date night? What? No. I want to fall asleep when I'm on hold on the phone. I'm so tired. Well, the chakra system is how you re-energize yourself. And I really believe, Tricia, that the chakra system is actually what we would call the mind. Right? You know where your brain is. Right? Everybody's brain is in the same place. However, we have something that we call the subconscious mind. Where do you suppose you keep that? Right.
From the neck down.
Subconscious.
Jung defined it too. The unconscious mind is the body from the neck down.
I think that's true. And the coolest thing in the whole wide world about bodies is that they don't lie. And the reason they don't lie is because they can't. Now, can we use our minds to override our bodies? We do it all the time. That's called normal life in the Western Hemisphere. Or North America anyway, right?
Sure,
wait a minute. Okay, so it's Monday and you have a tickle in your throat. And your best buddy says, oh, come on, let's go out dancing, right? And you go to your mind, your brain goes, oh, my throat won't be bad. I'll just go out and have a good time. It'll be great. But you didn't get enough sleep Monday night. And then Tuesday night, you had to stay up late and help your best friend. And by Thursday, you have to take the day off because you're sick. But you had that tickle in your throat on Monday if you'd listened. Right? We're not taught to listen to our bodies. We're not taught to be still enough or quiet enough to listen to our bodies. And messages from the body are quiet.
Very subtle.
As I say, unless you're about to step in front of a bus, right? Or there's a Bengal tiger on the sidewalk in front of you. That's never happened to me, but that doesn't mean it doesn't happen to people, right? So you have that fight or flight or freeze thing that all of us have. But wait, none of that. That's way, way, way high stakes, right? That's like living in a horror movie. No. Bodies are quiet and clear and simple, right?
Literal, very direct.
That's right. What that person's body wanted them to do was stay home and have tea and read their book Monday night.
And then maybe not talk so much, not too much expressing for now, or something like that. Yeah.
That's right.
Time to receive, time to absorb.
Or assimilate even better, right?
Right. Yeah.
This is not the evening to spend on the internet researching. As the doctors I used to work with would say, you're two-timing me with Dr. Google.
Right? Oh, I sometimes call him Lord Google.
Well, there you go. That works for me. So it all eventually came together, and I began to realize that I would say something about chakras, not in the medical center context, but in the counseling context. And people will go, what? Oh yeah, chakras. I know what those are. They're those. And most people think that the chakras are sort of colored hockey pucks that hang on a ribbon on the inside of their spine.
On a ribbon. That's funny.
Well, but it's true.
Yeah.
And that's not what they are at all. At least that's not how I relate to them at all. I think that the chakras are three-dimensional spheres of energy that are in constant motion. Yeah. They're squishy and like more like a Nerf ball, and they move and they change depending on what's going on, because your chakras remember every single thing. Right? There's your subconscious mind. There's your karma. There's your memory. There's all that kind of stuff. That's why, you know, Bessel van der Kolk's book was on the bestseller list forever and ever and ever. Your body keeps the score. Oh, yeah, it does. And bodies are relentlessly honest scorekeepers.
Yes. Yes, the subconscious mind or the body will always get what it needs. And so
and must.
It will bring you to your knees if that's what you need. It will make you lie in bed. And yeah, but the messages are there subtly. And and it's great when the times when we are really brought into submission with what it needs, you know, if you will, then, you know, we can then kind of make amends or atonement, and then in a way deepen that listening. I think that's an opportunity, because the body is always healing the energy. It's always off-gassing the energy.
I agree. And I also think this. I think that is the message that almost all of Western civilization needs to hear, other than those who are really connected to the land and its natural rhythms, right? But for most of us who live in cities, who ignore the cycles of light and dark, bodies require time and focus and energy. So I began to talk to people about their chakras, right? But the most important thing about chakras is the thing that I know no one who teaches, and that's this. You know, if I sat down in front of a piano and played you middle C and said to you, Trisha, this is music, it wouldn't take you very long to say to me, no, it's not. It's a note, right? It's only music when you add another note, right? Then you get into music, right? So the important thing about chakras is not that you have chakras. I mean, how nice. Everybody has chakras and they all work to a degree or not. If they didn't, you wouldn't be here. So such thing as a shut down chakra, really, right? But some of them are more active and less active. It just depends on what's going on, right? So your chakras are a system. The most important thing is that they talk to each other, right? Because like the endocrine system, the ductless glands that are aligned with each chakra has a ductless gland attached to it, right? The endocrine system, I used to know a doctor who called it the sphinx of the body, right? The endocrine system is the only system in your body that compensates for itself. So when your adrenals are freaked out, your thyroid works too hard. Now you might go to see an endocrinologist and say, I'm exhausted all the time. And the endocrinologist is going to say, maybe your thyroid's off. Let's check that. And your thyroid will be off, but it won't be the cause. The cause is the fact that your adrenals are burnt out. Right. But you have to trace it back to where it is, because the whole thing compensates for each other, right? The chakras do the same. So if your, for example, thyroid is off, your thyroid gland is connected to your throat chakra, right? Psycho-spiritually, emotionally, it means one of two things. Are you talking too much? Or are you squelching yourself and not speaking up? Is there something you need to say, or is it something you wished you hadn't said? Is it in the present? Is it something you need to say now? Or is it something you wished you'd said when you were 10? Right? You've thought of the perfect comeback line, right? But you're now 40. Right? But that happens to people all the time, right?
Yeah.
When the when the Catholic Church silenced Matthew Fox for a year, and he gave his first public speech afterward, he opened by saying, as I was saying before, I was so rudely interrupted, which is so clever, right? Like, but he had a year to think of that.
Yeah, that's true.
Right. Okay. So bodies give us information all the time if we'll pay attention to them. And then, wait a minute, what sort of action steps do I need to take based on this? Oh, so somebody has a sore throat all the time, or gets bronchitis twice a year, or gets has a chronic sinus infection, drip down the throat, right? What's that? Well, it always starts in the gland on the left side of my body. All right, that tells me a million things right there as a medical intuitive. One of those things is you're having a problem with some sort of female energy.
Right.
It's on the left side of your body, right? Now, is it on the front half or the back half? Because if it's the back half, like on your neck, right?
Past. Yeah.
It's past. It's in the front. It's now or the future, like something you're dreading, right? In the future. So, okay, you learn, and I teach people how to track the clues so that it becomes actionable steps. Right? Now, I'm not going to tell somebody who has cancer of the thyroid not to do chemo.
Right, of course.
Right? Or not have it removed. But still, there's a psychological, emotional, or spiritual component to that. You have thyroid cancer. What's that about? Where did that come from? Right? And I'm not interested in blaming the victims. What I'm interested in doing is this, helping them give meaning to what's happening so that then they have some choices to make, right? So this has happened to me before. Somebody has come to see me with lung cancer, and they're agonized that they smoked for 30 years. I listen. I go, How long are you going to punish yourself for that? You can do it for the rest of your life. You can do it next lifetime too if you want, if you're into that. Or you can find out what the message of that smoking was for you. And why, since you quit 20 years ago, why is cancer in your lungs showing up now? What is that? Okay, so where is it in your lungs? Where are the tumors? How have they moved? Is it metastasis? I mean, like all those questions give you one more piece of information, which is what I talk to people sometimes about being a chakra detective, right? Which I actually think we are. I mean, at the risk of malpractice, right? You're wearing orange today, right?
I know. I've been thinking about it when I showed up on the camera. I'm like, we're talking about the colors, and
That's right.
Brightly orange. It's almost a salmon. It's got a twinge of pink red to it.
Right.
Yeah, I know. It's a statement color.
That's a second chakra color, right? So,
and it picked me this morning, by the way. And that's I usually do that. I go, okay, well, and I haven't worn this top in a good year at least. I like it a lot, but it just didn't. It hasn't popped out of my wardrobe until today. In a long time. Yep.
Okay. So a couple of things. That says to me, this podcast is a passion for Tricia.
It sure is.
Right? Okay. That's cool. That's something. Or she's feeling really passionate about something else in her life and needs to channel it into an organized place. Right? So our clothing, we use our clothing to medicate. The colors of our clothing medicate us all the time, right? What a red power tie, a red power suit, right? I mean, like I can go through every color of the rainbow for this. So the chakras, I work with 8 major chakras, not 7. Most people work with 7. That's the classic Hindu version. The reason I work with 8 is because the 8th chakra was discovered by the Kabbalistic rabbis in Spain in the 1870s. And it's called it's the thymus chakra, and it actually is outside your body, right? Here's your thymus gland, right behind your sternum.
So like the
Most of us,
higher heart, the high heart or the higher
well,
heart?
that's a way to say it. Sure, it's
Uh-huh.
the impersonal heart. It's the
Mm-hmm.
compassionate heart. It's the heart
Yeah.
that can forgive when your personal heart can't.
It's the Christ consciousness channel
That's
as well.
that's
Yeah.
a way, but it's
Uh-huh.
outside the body, and then what it's for is to give you immunity.
Mm.
That's what the thymus gland is for, right? So
Mm.
thymus, most of us know about thymus glands because of HIV/AIDS. That's where the T cells live that we all know about and have read about, right? But
Mm-hmm.
this is emotional immunity, psychological immunity, spiritual immunity. No one can hurt you if you lead with a rosy pink, right? And it's in front of you. It's not inside your body.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the moment I read it, that was what solidified my commitment into working with chakras, because
Mm.
I knew, as sure as my hair was much redder in those days, but still red, um, it is was aha. The chakras are a system that is constantly becoming.
Yeah.
So there are people who would say there are 108 chakras. There are
Mm-hmm.
people who would say there are 32 chakras. It's taught all kinds of different ways.
Yeah.
My purpose in teaching everyone about chakras is that we all need to know how to take care of our own energy systems. We're not even
Mm-hmm.
taught that we have one, let alone how to take care of it. But I think this should be taught like hygiene.
Absolutely. Energetic hygiene, emotional,
Energetic.
spiritual, psycho-spiritual hygiene. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Because
Mm-hmm.
when we can't figure out, for example, something I talk about with people all the time is energetic leaks,
Mm-hmm.
right? Most energetic leaks happen because of what happens right here: mouth, teeth, tongue, speech,
Mm.
right? So you're in the elevator on your way up to your office and somebody says, "Oh, we should go to lunch." You go, "Yeah, we should." And you don't mean it.
Mm.
There's an energetic leak right there. A
Yeah.
little piece of you is now hanging in the air. Whoa, whoa, whoa. No, no. You got to learn how to tell the truth, right? You know what? I'm really busy these days and my brain is too overloaded. I need quiet at lunchtime. I can't go to lunch. Ask me in 6 months,
Mm.
right? Oh,
Mm-hmm.
truth. Nobody's wrong, but you're not saying yes when you mean no.
And we will be right back. Hi, it's Trisha with an exciting announcement. The Intuitive Healing Arts Academy has an amazing roster of courses for 2023, starting with immersive weekend courses in intuitive psychic development. Level 1 is Sunday, January 22nd from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Pacific Time, and then levels 2 and 3 are held together in a weekend immersion on February 25th and 26th. Intuitive Psychic Development Level 1 is an immersive workshop filled with interactive learning, meditation, practice, fellowship, and attunement to open or enhance your intuitive skills. All levels of development are welcome, whether you are a beginner or you are an advanced professional, and if you are interested in using this for personal or for professional applications. After these intuitive psychic development courses, we will be heading into animal communication and nature healing and multidimensional mediumship, and many more exciting weekend and full-day workshops. All of these are for all levels of development for both personal and professional applications. As I said, there are early registrations for all of the courses, so you want to check them out as soon as they are announced. And so, do find the link in the description to register for the first full-day course, Intuitive Psychic Development Level 1, on Sunday, January 22nd, 2023. It's going to be fun. It's going to be life-changing. It's going to be heart-expanding. And I'm so excited to expand with you. And now back to the show. I had an event, in this past summer, someone who is an old friend and put out an invitation for a birthday celebration and put it out like months in advance. And it was going to be 2 hours away from my house and at a
Each
busy
way.
restaurant, each way at a busy restaurant. This is how I'm assessing it. I'm like, I guess I have to get a hotel because that's going to be, all these different things I'm thinking. And so I didn't respond to it. Then ancillary friends and the, partner start texting me, "Are you going to come?" And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to be available yet. Well, verdict came down the day before that I got COVID. So my energy was, there's always extenuating, and reality is very complex. How reality is manifesting and how energy is flowing is very complex. But when it came down to it, I I didn't really think I would have the energy, or I didn't really have the motivation to go. And I didn't give a clear answer. So my walking about on the earth somehow contracted something that would keep me from going. Is that my preferred way? No, but what are we
But
going to
does
do?
that happen? Like that, was that equivocation actually some sort of um, interior awareness that you would not be available at the time?
Well, in a way, here's actually, if I get deeper into it, this one particular friend, I've known this person for 35 years. If you decline an invitation, you get kind of browbeaten and begged and asked why not and guilted and all these different kinds of things. That's a pattern, and I guess I've been able to handle that because you know that's what happens. And I've been able to stand up for myself and say, I'm sorry you feel that way, and well, this is my reality. I understand you feel that way and I appreciate it, but I'm in charge of my life. So that I've done all of that before, and I was just too busy and tired and exhausted and whatever else to want to have one of those conversations, and to be told. I didn't want to be told how I disappointed, and so something came in to remove that opportunity, because she can't say that she's disappointed in me if I was in bed with COVID, right?
Absolutely, she can't say that, but how
Mm-hmm.
interesting. And I'm sure that you have, upon occasion, tried to say to her, you don't have to beat me up when I say no. It
Yeah.
doesn't mean I don't love you.
Yeah. We've been
It
through
means
things like
I
that.
can't,
Mm-hmm.
right. So you've attempted to grow up that piece of her
Mm-hmm.
in the way that it needs to be grown up, right? But she's
Mm-hmm.
not playing.
Yeah.
Oh,
I mean,
okay.
and there's more to it too, because I hadn't had COVID previous to that. We've been in that thing for a while, and I almost feel like I wanted to opt into the social contract for a moment so that I could stop being so worried about it and have some immunity. I think there's some subtlety going on in there that I was okay with getting it finally,
Right. So you didn't have
to
to
be
worry about
honest.
getting it.
At least for a few months. I mean, that's the what we believe is the case right now. So, and I didn't get it. I didn't get the worst strain, but I have had some. Oh, and you know what else? I
Mm.
mentioned to you before we got on that I have some long COVID symptoms going on, and I've actually become really grateful for them. I had two major ones, one minor one, two major ones. One, it caused me to have IBS, and
Mhm.
I had to dramatically shift my diet, which was already a model of really, really great, but I had to shift it to a different model of really, really great. But in that process, I had to, even though I went to doctors and they couldn't help me and they wanted to give me medicine, which made me feel sicker, I had to just get quiet with my body. And so I deepened that communication, even though that is the life that I lead, is deepening intuitive and physical communication. And the second one is migraine. I got migraine triggered in me when I got the booster about 4 to 6 months before getting COVID, and also had to get much more subtle with my awareness of myself, of how I'm running my energy, what I'm doing, when my neurology is starting to say, "Hey, pull back, you're forcing things." And so I'm actually really grateful for the illnesses, or the expression of the way my energy is running, because they've made me get really in contact, a deeper communion with
Well,
my
it's an
body.
EWS, isn't it? It's an early warning
Yes.
system.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, it's an early warning system, but for as many times as you override your early warning systems, your body will eventually say, okay,
I got to get louder.
right, we are actually going to stop you in your tracks,
Yeah.
dear,
Mm-hmm.
until you pay attention to this, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
not a mistake, that phrase, pay attention. It
Right.
costs
Yeah.
to pay attention.
Mm-hmm.
And if I am paying attention to Trisha, I am not paying attention to my husband. who's in the
Mm-hmm.
next room. I mean, he's fine. He's not asking for attention. He's a grown man,
Yeah.
but there's a cost to attending. And so what we try to do, and this is the great God multitask,
Mm-hmm.
um, that splitting, that fragmentation, there's a reason that there's a whole generation of people whose motherboards have melted, right? That's called
Mm-hmm.
Alzheimer's or
Yeah.
dementia. Their
Yeah.
motherboards have melted because that influx was too much for the way those brains were wired,
Mm. Mm-hmm.
right? So those of us who are transitional to that, right? I find not so much on the social media. Doesn't do it for me. Doesn't do it for me. I don't have fun doing it. I'm really not sure that I'm interested in having anybody else's algorithm, and certainly not the algorithm of a 20 something, to run my 65-year-old life. Yeah, no. I have a little more experience than you do, Sugar Plum, and I'm here to tell you that an
Well,
algorithm is not the way to do it.
and actually, and no matter, even if you're 20 something, you have more experience with your life. You know what I mean? Like,
That's
that's the
exactly right.
thing,
That's exactly right.
to be utilizing an outside authority about how you should, which is probably the dirtiest word in our language,
Amen to that.
should should be running your business, running your life, um, being happy. I don't know, all of the things, and my guides and angels have been telling me lately, been pointing out to me, even though I am relatively speaking, I'm also not deeply engaged by social media. I use it, but even for me, I still go to it sometimes, a few times a day that I don't need to. It's certainly not doing what the urge is. The urge is I want to be inspired, or I want to, be filled with some beautiful education. And that's not happening there. Nope.
No, because it's so curated. It's the same
Mhm,
thing I find in self-help books,
mhm.
where you read a self-help book, and then there's a case study or an example, and as well as I do, that you're reading a case study that's a composite
Yeah. I
of
mean, it kinda
people.
has to be. Mhm,
Well, it kind of has to be,
mhm.
except that when case studies are not specifically actual cases, we can tell.
Yeah, they're manufactured.
Energetically, we can tell, and we go, I don't know. That doesn't feel right. Just,
I often s It's interesting, I kinda skim in self-help books. I skim past that part because I don't really like it. I like books that don't even have them, honestly.
So now that's
Yeah.
interesting.
Or
That's
there's
very
one
interesting.
there's one person she writes on human design. Her name is Christy Inge. I'm just attributing because she's actually gonna be on my podcast pretty soon. And
Sweet.
she blogs, and she also sends it out as a newsletter. And in her, she does like my personal experience with like gate 19 of and she tells a personal story that you can feel is real. And
That's
so
right.
those I read, but you're right.
That's
Those
right.
case studies, I'm like, I don't like them. They don't help me.
Well, and it devalues the actual theoretical work that you're trying to learn about by
Hmm.
doing it that way. That's why when I tell patient stories and stuff, I tell the actual thing that was happening with
Hmm.
people, right? I don't clean it up or change it or any of that stuff, because you can tell that the story about the opera singer was for real,
Hmm.
right? And drastic and dramatic and all those things. But at the same time, wow, fancy dancy specialists weren't able to help her because
Hmm.
they didn't have permission to touch the energetic core of anything,
Hmm.
right? And that's one of the reasons I actually ended up becoming a reverend doctor, is that
Hmm.
I was working intensely with people's, well, energy, but also their bodies and their hearts and minds. And I wasn't interested in not having as much at my core information. So if you, for example, I do really spiritual counseling, so it's based on your concept of divinity, right? So if
Hmm.
you are a nice Catholic girl, then we're going to talk about the Blessed Virgin Mary. But if you're a beautiful Hindu lady, we're going to talk about Lakshmi.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't care.
Right.
I don't need you to agree with me spiritually. Thank you very much. My path is my path, and yours is yours. I would love to honor you on yours. I would love to serve you on yours. I would love to support you on yours. But I don't need you to agree with me by
Well,
any stretch.
well, think about it. It's as if, I mean, bless us all. I am here being the individual that I am. But if we're using the examples of Mother Mary, Virgin Mary, and Lakshmi, and let's just say those are just names or faces or iterations of a universal fractal color of light. So let's say they both are powder blue. Does that mean that does this religion own it or this religion own it? It's of course not. It's just an interface with that energy, and that's
I
what I think
actually think of it
we
as
all are.
software
Yes, exactly. It's
in real
software,
life.
and then Lakshmi was and still is a hardware, or now because she's not physically in a hardware sense manifest, but she still is a program that's running. So right.
That's exactly right.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as I'm concerned, and I actually believe this about God. First of all, God is the shortest word, which is the only reason I use it.
Right.
But if I don't think that God cares what you believe, I think God cares that you believe. So if and the purpose of belief, as far as I'm concerned, and I'm not talking about religious belief or dogmatic belief, I'm talking about an awareness that there is an order that creates our reality, and that no one who's here doesn't belong here.
Right.
No one. That includes Osama bin Laden, and the guy who lives next door who doesn't vote the way I vote, and the guy who lives across the street who does vote the way I vote, but who's Black, right? That includes all of the differences, all of the people that you like, all of the people that you don't like, all the people you agree with, all the people that you don't agree with. And see, the thing is, and this is one of the great lessons of spirituality as far as I'm concerned, is the work here is to MYOB. Mind your own business, right? Because if you're not going to mind your own spiritual business, who's gonna? Right? If you're not going to be in charge of your own spiritual growth, who's gonna? Right? Like, wait, what? It's your responsibility to understand how you fit here, and that all of the things that you want for yourself, every single good thing, and I don't care what that is, health, wealth, time, a house in the Caribbean, whatever works, a Lamborghini, whatever works for you. If it's not okay for everybody else to have that, you can't have it either.
Yeah.
It's that simple. There are not exceptions here. I gave a sermon once that was called "You're Not That Special," and it was, you're not the one that God left out of the plan.
Right.
Right.
Right. You're the only one. I love it.
Right? Oh, I see. You're not part of God's plan. People go, wait, what? Of course I am. Right? Well, of course you are. Don't be silly. But that feeling of annihilation, that feeling of alienation, that feeling of loneliness, we have an epidemic of loneliness on certainly in the West right now, because we're not taught to reach out and check in with others. Oh, gee, Tricia, tell me your experience. We had a good laugh over technology right before we started to record today. Technology happens and it's really annoying sometimes. Oh, well, right? But even that little bit, we'd never met each other before. We'd exchanged some emails, but that little bit made a connection, right? That's what social media started out to be for. Right. Was real connection. But now at this point, there's a reason we call them Facebook friends.
Well, and because they're not real friends.
Well, yeah. My definition of a real friend is, if I'm in jail in Lima, Peru, you're going to raise the State Department to get me out. Right? I have 6 people in my life like that. I would call that a crowd of people that would literally that would mow down the White House to get me out of jail in Lima, Peru. I don't know how I picked Lima, but sorry about that. But
Sounds far. It's actually the name of the street I live on too, by the way. So
oh, that's
it's
hilarious.
interesting.
No mistake.
Well, you know what else? Not to go too far down the rabbit hole. However, it should be mentioned, like you said, that perhaps that's what social media, that was the original intention, was to connect. But I have to say, Zuckerberg, he actually made it to bash on people. Facebook was originally called the Face Smash Book, and it was to base. Yeah,
Seriously?
you don't know? Yeah, you should watch whatever that movie is that's about him. Yeah, no, he called it the Face Smash Book, and it was basically him bagging on girls that wouldn't date him. So that
I had no
accounts for.
idea.
Yeah, that accounts. That was the seed
Original
for
impetus.
Facebook, and then he bought Instagram. So I don't know.
Well, and I was on Instagram for a couple of years, and finally I just said, can't do it. Can't do Facebook. Can't do Instagram. I you know,
It's where people are, though. So, and I think that we can perhaps, I mean, maybe for some of us, it is not healthy to engage with it at all.
right?
And maybe for some of us, we can have an engagement with it where, it's like, it isn't healthy. Missionaries go into third world countries and build churches and schools and hospitals. And, their spiritual loins must be girded in order to be able to do that. And they have the strength and calling for it. I don't know. Maybe I'm idealizing a little bit. Maybe I feel like I'm a missionary into the third world of Instagram.
Well, I think there has to be a redemptive
Yeah.
something to
Yes.
all of those things. I don't think that there's anything that exists that is thoroughly bad or thoroughly good.
Yeah. Because we're humans. Humans, we made it.
Well, and the planet is based on polarity. I mean,
True.
I can teach that in two words, day night.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So
Mm-hmm.
everything is based on polarity. What's happened now is that we've taken polarity, which is opposites, and made it polarization,
Yeah.
right? Well, polarization, it's only a matter of time before the elastic band breaks,
Right.
right? That's just what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
But in the meantime, I think we have a really serious assignment, and that is to be as kind as we can. I have a sign upstairs in my in the foyer that says human, kind, be both.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a good idea. I really do. Kindness is pretty simple because we're all the same kind.
Mm-hmm.
So I may not like what some politicians are doing, but their mamas were thrilled when they were born.
Yeah.
Right. And I have to remember that.
Mm-hmm.
I have to remember, that and it's hard sometimes. It's really hard when, one of the things that's happened lately for me is that it's right before the midterm elections, and everybody and their sisters speculating about how it's going to end up with the Senate and the House and the this and the that. And I don't want to know.
Yeah.
I don't want to know what the speculation is. I want to know what's actually happening. So I voted early, and the day of the voting, I'll pay attention. But what it could be,
that's a waste of spiritual energy. I was just talking to my husband about that this morning, actually. Well, again, to reference human design, we have the open head center, both of us, and he had to send this piece of equipment that he sold for $10,000. It's a pretty penny that someone paid for his thing. And he was like, really like doing everything he could to take care of it. He wanted to make sure it was just right because, he's like, if I buy something for $10,000, it better come, pristine.
Intact. Yeah.
Yeah. So he sent it already. But then today he was like, oh my gosh, I'm on this message board. And they say, if you put bubble wrap on that thing, it can ruin the finish. And I was like, but your thinking about that is not helpful. And like, it doesn't matter. He goes, but it does matter if it gets there on time. I'm like, but you're thinking about it right now doesn't matter. It literally doesn't change matter. that thing is going on an airplane right now. So, I understand that maybe you want to soothe your nervous system by saying, well, if it is ruined, what can we do? You still got to wait till Friday,
Till it
So
gets there.
thinking about things that don't matter, I think that is an epidemic we have. And
I think that's part of it. I also think that we somehow have this idea that if we'll think about the bad possibilities, we'll prevent them.
Exactly. That's not possible. That's not how it is.
Well,
I mean, you can get an earthquake kit, but it's not going to stop the earthquake from happening.
No, it isn't. My mother was a great worrier. She was really good at it. Mm-hmm. And so when I was about 10, I finally decided, you know what? I don't even want to learn that skill.
A skill.
Yeah. Right? You're so good at it, Mom. You do it. I'm just going to skip worry. Okay. Yeah. And my mother was a Virgo. She was a triple Virgo. Mm. So she was really, it was her way, and her way was the right way, right? And I am a Libra with lots of planets in air, so I could see the fairies behind the sofa, right? And my mother was like, fairies behind the sofa? Are you kidding? Mm. Anyway, long story short, right? She spent most of my childhood looking at me like, what? Come on, you're kidding. You're kidding. No, I never was kidding because I never worried.
Yeah.
I never got crazed. I mean, sure, there are things that scare me about the future. I mean, we could have a pretty ooky conversation about climate change if you want.
Yeah.
Or we could hold a vision for inspiration and wisdom. And just as we have to listen to our own bodies, we have to listen to the body of the earth and pay attention to what that is, because, the whole earth has chakras.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So it's all a mirror if we will learn how to pay attention to it. And I think, more than anything, and that's why I wrote the chakra workbooks that I wrote. They're actual workbooks. And I wrote the book part, but you do the work part, you see.
Nice. Yeah.
And they're only print books because they're meant for you to write in them. And the purpose of them is to take you through past, present, and future about what's in your chakras now. What did you learn in that realm in your life? Where did it come from? What did you learn in your family, your religion, your education, all that kind of stuff? Where are you now? And do you like where you are now? Because if you do, awesome. But if you'd like to change something, how do you want to program your chakras for the future? Because that's what chakras do. They'll hold your vision if you'll speak it, own it, imagine it, let it resonate in your chakra system. Yeah. That's pretty amazing. And you can do chakra work at a stop sign, right? You don't need a mat or a workbook even, and I don't mean to be disingenuous. The workbooks will help you if you want to learn about them, but you don't need that. What you need is your attention and some quiet. And that's it. You don't need a mat. You don't need a teacher. You don't need a book. You have chakras.
How do we, you mentioned your meditation practice way up front. You mentioned that's how you met Mary. There's two things I would love to pull through for people who are interested, curious, is that meditation practice. Now, I teach meditation and, I'm also a hypnotherapist. And I think that is often the challenge, is finding the quiet. That's one thing I would love for you to just share about how one can create that quiet or create that meditation practice that can lead to something so miraculous as meeting Mother Mary and working for her. And the second part of the question is, how is that unfolded, working with Mother Mary? So meditation, then Mother Mary. Those are my questions.
I have the best boss in the world. That's for damn sure. The meditation thing is really interesting. For years and years, I sat in stillness. and let my mind wander. That was how I meditated. I don't
Yeah.
meditate that way anymore at all.
Mm.
I've met too many people who can't meditate that way. Not possible.
Mm-hmm.
They can't hold still. So there's 102 million ways to meditate.
Sure.
What I do now is I do jigsaw puzzles.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll sit at a table with a jigsaw puzzle, and it's a special place. It's almost like a jigsaw altar, if you will.
I like it.
I mustn't tell the puzzles that, though. And every puzzle piece is a prayer, right? I end up with a pretty picture at the end. But because it's repetitive and because it entertains my eyes, it makes my brain quiet down.
Yeah.
So I'll sometimes start doing a jigsaw puzzle, and I do them usually for about an hour every night with a question. Like I'll have talked to a client. I talked to a client earlier today, and I thought, I need to meditate on something that's going on in her life. She told me the bare facts, and the pieces of it weren't coming together for me in a pattern. Which usually it does, because really the counseling that I do is I help people rewrite their stories. Because 9 times out of 10, whenever somebody tells me something's wrong, right, and this happened, and this happened, and this happened, I go, all right, how do you want it to be? That's my first question, right? Usually what comes back to me is, I don't know. Well, if you don't know, how are you going to know if it changes?
Yeah.
So let's figure out how you want it to be. But also, people, and this is something that Mary taught me, often have the solution, the skill to solve their own problem, but they think their problem is in their marriage, and the skill they have is filed under work. So they don't think that running performance reviews at work, right, is the same thing as telling your spouse something you don't like. Hello? Those are identical. Those are identical. But we don't see that this skill set applies over here.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm always saying, you already know how to do that. People go, what? I go, yeah, you already know how to do that. You have it filed over here. But here's where you need to apply that. Oh my God, right? That's one thing. The other thing I find, and this also Mary has taught me to do, is human beings, Viktor Frankl said that human beings can live without many things except meaning. And as a metaphysician, I identify myself as a metaphysician. A metaphysician is all about meaning.
Yeah.
Because meta means beyond, right? Beyond the physical. That's what metaphysics is. So invariably, like I told you about the woman with the sore throat and the opera singing thing, right? She had a story that she told about the soul of this child and how she had hurt this child. And I told her a new story.
Right.
I said, what if it doesn't mean that? What if it means this? What? Right? We get ourselves so interesting into ruts with the stories that we tell, right? We have standard stories that we tell where the language is the same, the intonation is the same, the laughs come in the same place, you know. Those stories are so often the ones that need ultimately retelling for a different meaning, right? I was at a workshop once that Louise Hay was teaching, and we were all paired up, and she asked us to talk about the very worst thing about our past, right? It's kind of strange to do with a stranger, but all right. Yeah. Anyway, the young man I was working with was adopted and ranting about it. My parents didn't want me, this and this and this. And I just listened to him, and I finally said, that's not how I think of adoption at all. He said, really? I said, no. I said, I think of it as this. You got here, you looked around, you went, whoa. If this is it, this isn't it. I got to do something. I got to get out of here. I think adopted kids are the kids who are so smart, and so clear about their missions that they get themselves out of those bad situations. The poor guy looked like I'd hit him over the head. Right? I didn't really mean to, but he later said to me, you changed my whole life. Well, I didn't mean to change his whole life. I meant to help his heart not break so badly.
Right.
Anymore.
Very much. That feels like you're answering this question about how is it to work with Mary. I think she just speaks through you in those situations so much. And she is an archetype for just divine mother.
Yeah, she totally is. I was right out of seminary, and I've been asked to teach an adult Sunday school class. And I knew that coming up on the curriculum was a class on evil, right? Which, so I did what any self-respecting, terrified teacher does. I over-prepared, right? So I thought if I filled up all the hour, no one would ask me any questions. I would be safe. And I was on my way out the door of the classroom, and the person in class who never, ever asked a question said, "Dr. Corso." I was like, oh no. I turned around, I said, "Yes." And she said, "What do you think happened when Hitler died?"
Oh gosh, yeah.
Well, if this isn't proof that there is a Holy Spirit and a Mother Mary and a God, I don't know what is. What came out of my mouth was, I think God hugged him for a long, long time.
So sad.
Painful. That is a pained man, right? And all of us breathed, and I went back upstairs and went to go give the sermon, and it was absolutely fine. But I remember thinking, I would never have thought of that.
Yeah, you couldn't have prepared that.
No, absolutely not.
God spoke it through you. God said, "Yep, this is what happened."
So
do not mistake me for anything but a divine parent who loves my children.
Who loves my children. That's exactly right. And just because I don't love the guy next door who votes the way I don't, doesn't mean that God doesn't. And I need to know that. I need to allow for that. Right? So that's why You're Not That Special is really real. Really real.
The Course, and A Course in Miracles, I don't know if it's I don't know where it is, because I'm not a great student of A Course in Miracles, but this one phrase, all of God's children are special and none of God's children are special.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Or if only some of them are, then none of them are.
Absolutely.
Right? That's the part. And it can sound so absolutist and sort of theological, these sorts of things. But you know what? It's also a very practical way to live, because what happens is when you start to think that we're all in the same boat, we're all on this planet together. As my friend the astrologer says, there is no planet B. There isn't.
Yeah.
We're here, and we all have to deal with whatever's happening here. Now, not everybody lives in South Florida, right? I certainly don't, and I don't live anywhere near water. Well, I do, near the Hudson River, but the Hudson River is not going to do what the Atlantic Ocean is going to do, right? Sure. So the point is, we're all here, and we're all doing this together. You don't have to like it, but that's a fact, right? It's not an alternative fact. It's a real fact.
Right.
So growing up spiritually means that you include everybody. If you don't, it's only a matter of time before you become excluded eventually, right? Because if it's anything but everyone, right? Everyone except the people who are purple, green, yellow, orange, whatever, honestly, no, there aren't exceptions. There aren't exceptions to God's love.
Well, it's speaking of the energy, if we are in rejection of someone else, once again, energy is very literal. What the energy receives is rejection. And it's, what is that phrase? Resentment is taking poison and thinking it's going to hurt someone else. Something like
I've
that.
never heard that.
I'm
That's great.
paraphrasing. Yeah, I'm paraphrasing, but I think it's pretty close to that. And I don't know who can be attributed for that. But that's energy, again, is literal. And so rejection, resentment,
And it's all a mirror.
resistance, just
It's all a
resistance.
mirror. It
Mm-hmm.
comes back to you. That's really true, which is why I say real spiritual work is mind your own business.
Yeah.
Do your own work. That's why it's important to know what's going on in your chakras. One of the things I would like to say is that people often ask me if they can learn to do chakra work on other people. Mm-hmm. And yes, I do chakra work on other people, but I've been doing chakra work for 40 years. That's 40. Mm-hmm. I have a little bit of experience. And you can't do chakra work on other people until you know beyond a shadow of a doubt how yours are.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because if you do, you'll project yours all over the other person.
Absolutely. Because a healer is always healing, and that starts with number one.
Well, if it doesn't, it's a big problem.
It's a big lens. Yeah.
Right.
It's like if you have on glasses that are blue, you're not going to see the picture correctly.
That's right. That's mm-hmm. exactly right. So the important thing is, yes, learn your own chakra system. And then, of course, you can help other people with theirs. Mm-hmm. One of the things I love to do on podcasts is offer your audience a free gift.
Oh, thank you. I was about to ask you, we want to make sure that we know exactly how people can work with you and what it is that you're offering. So please, thank you. Let us know about that.
Okay. So a free gift in my particular case really means a free gift. You don't have to put your email address in to get it. Although a second screen will come up to invite you to be on the mailing list if you like. I admit. But sure. What will come up on that first screen at chakras.susancorso.com, which I'm sure Trisha will put in the show notes, mm-hmm. is something I call the chakra less mores. And it's two polarities of behavior mm-hmm. that you can stop doing, do this less, mm-hmm. right? And one that you can do more. Right? Less mores, right? So the first chakra, the less mores are complain less, thank more. Mm-hmm. So now there's several ways you can diagnose from these. And if you actually get the less mores, and it's a digital download, you'll see it's pretty. Actually, there are two of them. I'm a Libra and I couldn't make up my mind.
I love that.
It's the truth. I like them. They're just fine. Have both. I'm easy, right? That's good. But the less mores can show up as, complain less. Okay, number one, am I complaining? Or wait, am I surrounded by people who are complaining? Yeah. What is that about? Is it internal or is it external?
Right.
Let's notice that first, right? Mm-hmm. What are they complaining about? Are people in danger? Let's pay attention to that. Right? Oh, the water is up to my waist in the office. That might be a problem.
Yeah.
Right?
That's a good one.
Okay. The mores, the same. They're ideally replacements for the lesses because human beings don't not do things very well.
Yeah.
Right? Whatever you do, don't think about the Statue of Liberty. Right? How fast?
Yeah.
So to give you something to do when you're stopping complaining, thank more. Okay. Do you need to thank you? Are you feeling underappreciated? Do you need some thanks? Start at home. There's a bathroom mirror, I'm sure. Go look in the mirror and say thank you. For real, right? Then, does your team need some thanking? Do people need some acknowledgement? Do they need some encouragement? Great. Go about and thank everybody, right? There is something you can do to balance your chakras out right now. Those are the less mores. But another thing you can do is name what I would call the in-betweens, right? So if you're going to balance your chakras, you could go red, orange, yellow, but that's not what's important. What's important is the red-orange and the orange-yellow and the yellow-green. Let's make sure your third chakra and your fourth chakra are talking.
Yeah, those the pathways, the channels, the meridians.
Right. The middle colors are the two together. And it's a circuit. So when you get to rose, the thymus, right, you go back to rose red and you're back at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Right? There are 1,000,002 ways to work with your chakras. A lot of people teach chakra work very complicatedly. I do not.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're simple. They're not easy, but they're simple.
Yeah.
And it requires your attending to yourself and to your own system, because it's definitely an early warning system, your chakra system, and any one of us can do it. I mean, I certainly know almost everyone has walked into a room where people have been fighting, right, and going,
Mm-hmm.
I need to get out of here. So you can't tell me you can't feel your own energy. Garbage. Of course you can, right? You're just not used to doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, right? If you have a chakra that's in pain, like you just had a breakup, put your hands over your heart chakra, right? Shore it up.
Yeah. Or hug yourself.
Right. Hug yourself. If you're trying to remember something, right, and you can't, touch your third eye.
Mm-hmm.
Right? No one's going to think you're, being naughty in the office. I would not recommend doing that to anyone else without permission or someone you know very well. Right? But chakras, I think that chakras want to help us.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean, you can't imagine thinking that you have a foot that doesn't want to cooperate with you.
Right.
Right? You don't. You think that your feet are interested in doing their feet job, right? Well, I think the energy system's like that. And I think it's getting to the point where we all need to know that there is one and that we can work on it, in it, through it, with it, to change our lives and make us better. Feel better, not be so tired. I'm putting together a little course. I'm not there yet. It's going to be a tiny course, like a class that takes no more than an hour and a half or so, about how to clean up energy leaks. So if you're interested in something like that, definitely sign up for the mailing list, because, wow, energy leaks are. I mean, I know a lot of single moms somehow, and man, they are toast.
Yeah.
Most of the time.
A lot of demands, right.
A lot of demands and not a lot of...
Or a lot of questions, at least, if not demands. So, yeah.
Well, and space. Not enough mental space to figure out, okay, what's next? What do I have to do? What's the plan? How is this going to work? Right? But instead, from thing to thing to thing to thing to thing, well, that can't... You got to come back to yourself. And that's where your chakras can keep you anchored.
This has been just so amazing. And I want to encourage everyone to definitely check the show notes. That gift sounds, the Lessmores, oh gosh, what a we'll tool, and really simple to pull through some of that complexity of your relationship with your energy. So just, I mean, we'll have to have you back on another time, Susan. This has been amazing. So is there any last thing you want to direct the listeners' attention to about any offers or anything else?
Yes, let me just say this. I do take private clients.
Oh, good. Yes.
I don't work with people over long periods of time, but usually someone will bring me trouble and we'll work for, between 1 and 3 months, every couple of weeks. You can, there are contact sheets, pages on both my websites. One is the letter I, ampersand.org. The other is susancorso.com. And susancorso.com is my fiction website. I write lots and lots of books about metaphysical people.
Cool.
Fiction about metaphysical people. So that's a lot of fun.
Oh, that sounds wonderful. That sounds really wonderful. Sometimes when we are spiritual seekers and, personal development in that realm, we read a little too much nonfiction. So it's great to have some fiction to entertain the energy. I
started to write fiction about people that I wanted to know.
Yeah.
So they're metaphysicians. So I write historical fiction. I write a whole series of mystery novels. There are 10 of those. And I write romances. And they're
Oh,
all about conscious people or people attempting to live consciously,
that's
right?
beautiful.
Well, those are the people I want to know in my life. Why not, right?
Yeah. Yeah. You can dwell in the energy of it and then you'll find each other. And yeah.
There is one
Wow.
last thing I would like to tell everybody, and this is, I haven't announced this anywhere, so it's kind of interesting, but I'm thinking seriously about doing a first cohort of no more than 6 people to learn how to do chakra healing starting in January.
Wonderful.
And so if that speaks to you, it would be a year's training program, 5 hours a month, and that's all, plus whatever homework you want to do. Um, and you will learn how to make the kind of associations the Mother Mary teaches me how to make.
I love it. Wow. Really great stuff. Thank you so much for all of this beautiful work that you are doing on our world, our very, very beautiful and loving world,
My
our
pleasure.
Mother Earth. And just thank you for coming on. This has been just so inspiring and enlightening, and I
Thank
appreciate
you,
you.
Tricia. This was really fun. Besides, it's great to have a charmed life.
That's why, yes, I named it that because, yeah, when I had sort of spiritual awakening in my meditation, they told me, you are charmed. And it wasn't like I'm special. It's more like everyone is. Life is magic.
That's
And
exactly
so
right.
that's the purpose there. So thank you so much for noticing that. And thanks for coming on. I really was so, had like a refreshing sense in my spirit by talking to Dr. Susan Corso. And I wanted to give you one more, just a little bit of a tip for anyone who may be hungering for this. And that is that for every one of us, nature is spiritual experiencing. Now, being out in nature, walking outside, putting your feet on the ground, smelling the air, and also spending time with your animals. In the intro there, Dr. Susan Corso mentioned her familiar smooch, which I'm not sure. Maybe that's a dog. That's what I'm sensing. And so, spending time with your animals, they actually, the way that Dr. Susan Corso is an energy healer, your animals naturally work on your energy centers and shift and change and uplift and heal. And so does nature. And so, that's something that we can all do as a healing practice. Go sit with a tree and let the tree, just invite the tree, if it is interested, if it is willing, to work upon your energy system. And, sometimes it's too cold or hot outside, but you can open a window, breathe in some of that fresh air, and, you know, emotionally connect with a tree or connect with a body of water as you are being stimulated by the scent of a fresh, natural breeze. So, anyway, I hope you enjoyed this conversation with Dr. Susan Corso. And wow, what amazing work that she's doing and has been doing for so long. I am impressed and I am so gratified. I'm so grateful that she is doing that work and has been, because it is highly valuable to do this work on our beautiful world. And so, with that, I want to invite you to also remember to check out my YouTube channel, because some of these episodes that are conversations are posted there, but I'm also going live there. And I've also been going live on Insight Timer lately. And above all, the best way to stay in touch so that you can learn about the regular workshops that I am giving, regular meditations you can drop into. Super fun and a way for us to interact over Zoom in a closer manner is to scroll into the show notes and find the link to join my newsletter, because that's really the only way that you're going to find out everything is if you are on the newsletter. And so that's what I have for you in this episode. I really appreciate that you came here to be filled up, to be able to experience inspiration so that you can raise your vibration and shine your light on our beautiful world. Thanks for tuning in. I love you, whoever you are.